Welcome back to the report. You know, one of the biggest questions in science is how life first began. While researchers continue searching for answers, news headlines often make these bold claims, saying, oh, we found the ingredients for life in meteorites on asteroids or drifting through space. But do these discoveries actually explain how life started? Or do they raise even more questions about what it takes to go from raw material to living systems? Joining us again is Dr. Rob Stadler, a Harvard and MIT-trained medical engineer and co-author of The Stairway to Life. He's here to help us unpack the real science behind these claims and explain why the building blocks of life are really only a small part of the puzzle. Rob, welcome back.
Thank you, David. Always good to be here.
It is great to have you here. You know what is hitting all these headlines? Oh my goodness, we've tackled it. We've found life out in space. It's on a little asteroid here and there. Unpack that for me.
Yeah, you've talked about the hype. The media hype is what concerns me the most because they just amp it up. And there's these examples we have of news stories like this. Life's raw material may have come from the stars. And another one, we see that we finally know how life on Earth started.
Wow.
You know, that's really a strong statement.
That's definitive right there.
Really not true.
We've solved it.
Historic asteroid sample reveals the building blocks of life are, in fact, extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
That's a fact. And it blew us away how an asteroid may have delivered the vital ingredients for life on Earth.
You know, so The Guardian actually is using fuzzy words, may have delivered.
May have.
Right?
They said may.
But,
I appreciate that.
But with BBC and a lot of these others, they're talking about facts, and we know. And those definitive type statements, well, your average viewer, your average reader, they're going to say, oh, well, it's proven. There's no need for any faith anymore. Nature has figured it all out.
And this is part of why our society is so confused about this. Most people think that scientists working in a lab can make living things by mixing up some chemicals.
Right.
And here it is.
But there's a problem with this whole idea. And you even brought a video clip.
Yeah, it's very, very misleading. And this video clip gives us a feel in a snarky kind of way for why these findings on meteorites is misleading.
Okay, let's take a look right now.
These building blocks and letters are utterly unusable because they're mixed in with millions of other molecules that we don't want and are even toxic to life. You could probably find some undigested molecules of flour and sugar inside of a fresh dog poo. But that doesn't mean you're on your way to making a birthday cake. Well, unless you don't like the person. Cakes need lots of pure, uncontaminated ingredients. So does life. Bringing up these meteorites is half true and very misleading.
Okay, so that is a fun way to put it, because you'll find a lot of good things in a lot of bad, bits and pieces of good things and a lot of bad things.
Very small quantities, very diluted, but they're in there. And they don't tell you that is what bothers me about these hype stories.
Yeah.
It's not practical. If you took the world's best chemist and the world's most sophisticated equipment and said, pull out just the molecules we need for life out of these asteroids, they couldn't do it.
Yeah. Okay, but let's just say that somehow we could find everything we needed and we could create life. You know, we can find these components that what are those stumbling blocks that are going to continually get in the way?
Yeah. Well, as we talked about, even if they could pull those particular ingredients out, the next problem is that life's molecules they have what's called chirality.
Okay.
And so you have a left-hand version and a right-hand version.
Yeah.
And when you do something in the chemical lab and mix chemicals to make these things, you always get 50%, 50%.
Okay.
So if we're going to look at a living thing and say this living thing came from a natural process, what would you expect to find as the percent of left and right hand in a living thing?
Yeah.
50-50.
50-50.
Because that's all we ever find.
If the lab, experiments work.
It turns out that life is exquisitely sensitive to only one of them.
Really?
You never find the other one. It's very, very sensitive to that.
Okay. So chirality is like handedness.
It's handedness.
And basically you got the exact same thing but a mirror image of it. And one equals basically death and the other one exclusively equals life.
And natural processes tell us you would get that, but we actually see the opposite.
Really?
And it gets super complicated with RNA. RNA, each letter of RNA has 16 different chiralities in each letter of RNA.
Is that right?
But only one is ever used in life. So
Okay, so let's just say that somehow we're trying to put life together in the lab, or we're trying to make life happen by natural accident, or whatever it might be, and you finally get the exact right chirality of these elements, and you get them to form into something useful that you can take the next step. Is that going to solve the problem?
Yeah, you would think so. But no, that's just part way up the staircase to getting to life. Because the next step is you need these individual building blocks to link together to make polymers, right? And in water, which is what life is based upon, water inhibits the polymerization of these building blocks. It actually works to break apart the polymer rather than to form the polymer.
Wow. Now, there are a lot of theories on the origin of life within, the scientific community, ranging from, well, maybe it started in a hot environment on a molten Earth, or maybe it started near hydrothermal vents at the deep ocean floor. But what you're saying is that actually water can work against forming life in the long term, right?
It does. Yep. The reactions required are unfavorable, meaning that they don't happen naturally. Again, we know what natural processes do, and life requires something else.
Interesting. Something else. It seems to be pointing against naturalism and more towards orderly design. Now, tell me just for a moment about the YouTube channel. We saw a clip from one of those a moment ago, but you actually have a number of these that easily break down scientific concepts when it comes to, a lot of it has to do with biology and the idea that, oh, well, are we just accidents, or is there some purpose there? Tell me about that YouTube.
Yeah, so the YouTube channel is called Long Story Short.
Yeah.
It might help if you type Long Story Short Origin of Life.
Okay.
If you only type Long Story Short, you might just get a Taylor Swift song. Because it turns out she's a little more popular than we are. I can't figure that out.
Stadler. I don't know. For me, I would be searching Rob Stadler on YouTube.
But it's a series of educational, like 10-minute animated video clips that are fun and snarky that show you very clearly that God is behind the start of life.
Yeah, and I think, and I agree with you 100%. And a lot of my colleagues agree with you. And I'm sure a lot of your colleagues agree with you, but there's still this kind of unspoken thing, we don't go there. And then in the media, it's like, we absolutely don't go there. Real science is always going to be from an evolutionary point of view. Why is that?
Yes.
You don't have an answer to this one.
Well, I mean, I do. I mean, and part of it, I think, is because of the ego of scientists thinking that they have all the answers. And it's because people want to push God away and think that we've got it figured out.
Tell me about your background for just a moment, because you have education in a number of different fields. You are highly respected for your work in the medical community. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I have a PhD in medical engineering, but I've been practicing as a scientist. So more of a scientist than an engineer in practice. And the difference between the two is an engineer makes something that no one's ever built before, but a scientist learns something that no one's ever learned before. See, and the goal is to learn about how natural processes work so that you could put them to use and help people. So what we can do then is learn what natural processes do and actually find the boundary that natural processes can go this far but no further. And that's how we can use science, learning about natural processes, to know when something is outside of what natural processes are capable of doing.
Because you've got the laws in physics that govern the universe, and things work in a fairly calculable order. And when we study biology, we do see that there are genetic limits in place, that there can sometimes be mechanisms that are even coded for, but switched on or off depending on the circumstance. But when I think switched on, I mean, now you tell me if I'm wrong. When I think a gene that can be that's switched on or off, for instance, I think, oh, well, I've got a button in my car where if I get cold, I can switch on the heat, and then if if I get warmed up, I can switch that back off. It took an engineer to build that into that car,
Yes.
so that that ability would be there and could be called for on demand, or it could be turned off, right?
And that takes foresight.
Okay.
Somebody has to have foresight. They had to plan that out and know that a switch like that would be helpful.
Interesting. Okay, so in the realm where you use all of this information, you have to take foresight to say, in this medical device that I'm trying to put together, what would be the use case? What could possibly go wrong?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, it's a big what could possibly go wrong. That's where I spend almost all of my time. You have to figure out every scenario where something could go wrong and have a mitigation plan for what to do about that. And life is full of these mitigation plans to keep you alive if something does not go the way it should go.
So in your expertise, you see that same mitigation plan technique, these backups upon backups, built into even our bodies.
Yep, and if it weren't so, I wouldn't be standing here right now.
And none of us would be listening to you right now.
It takes some serious engineering to get to what we have here.
Right. In Stairway of Life, you described basically the process of a staircase of all of these specific interdependent components required for life. And if you take one stair out of the equation, everything falls apart.
Everything is needed all at once. So we call it a staircase, but it's actually more of a cliff. Because you've got to have all this stuff right there at the same time in the same location, all within a microscopic location, surrounded by a membrane, and the ability to keep things consistent inside. The environment has to be kept the same. It's called homeostasis. Is required for life as well. All that has to be there up front in order to start life.
And when you see something put together so well ordered, in nearly every case, design implies a designer. Creation requires a creator. These principles that we see working in our bodies, as well as the principles that we see working on Earth to support the life that's here, as well as the principles that we see in nearly everything else that we've studied, show these engineering patterns that I think are just God's fingerprints left for us to uncover. Dr. Rob Stadler, thank you so much for being here today and sharing with us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Absolutely. You know, if you want to dig deeper, I highly recommend his books, The Stairway to Life, An Origin of Life Reality Check, and also The Scientific Approach to Evolution. These resources break down the science with clarity and challenge the idea that life could have just formed by chance. You can find both books on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle, and you can also order them on creationsuperstore.com. You know, that is it for today. The more we find within the natural world speaks to a supernatural origin, actually a designer who cares for each and every one of us and who has formed us in His image with a purpose here on this earth. I want to thank you for joining us on the Genesis Science Report. Until next week, keep looking up. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God.